Hi guys, and welcome back to Miss Clark Does Science. Today we're continuing with our 2.1 unit Classification and Biodiversity for the Year 11 WJEC Science unit. And we're moving on to points C and D today. We're going to do 2 in 1, and we're talking about how organisms have adaptations which enable them to compete for resources and survive in their environment. So here I've got a picture of a rainforest, and we have lots of different types of plants, some flowering, some not, and some of them are at different heights. So we have the ferns at the ground here, but we have these tall, what look like a type of palm tree maybe, or a relation to the palm tree, going high into the sky here. And we're going to talk about why that is and how that happens later. And then we also have a type of antelope or wildebeest over here, and there's 2 of them, and they're basically fighting by the looks of it, or they're locking their horns, and we're going to talk about why they do that as well in a little bit. Okay, so the first thing that we need to know is that organisms have morphological and behavioural adaptations which enable them to survive in their environment. So we've seen this word before, morphological, and we learned that it meant shape or size. Okay, so morphological in this context is the shape and size of the animal, basically what it looks like and how it's adapted to its environment. And also we have behavioural things, which are more to do with how the animal acts and how that affects their chances of survival. So let's start over here with the swan. We've got some features that are listed here, the fact that it's got an orange bill, a long flexible neck, okay, a big wingspan compared to some other birds, and a keel-shaped breastbone, so it kind of bends out here, and webbed feet. So these are all examples of morphological adaptations. Morphological, so these are all shapes and sizes. So the keel-shaped breastbone here, they think it's to do with streamlining the swan so it can move fast through the water, just like the front of a boat does, where it's slightly angled. And the long wingspan for kind of puffing up itself to make it seem bigger than it is, and that comes across as a predatory thing. So it makes it seem like animals don't want to go near it to eat it or chance eating it. And then we have the behavioural adaptations, which is shown over here. Now what's thought is going on here is that they're actually competing for the territory. So they're actually competing for the land that they're living on by locking horns and going through this kind of ritual. And lots of animals show different types of behavioural adaptations. There are certain parasites that live inside of hosts, and the reason why they live in certain areas is because of competition. So there are lots of different types of adaptations, but you need to know that there are 2 main types, and this is the differences between them. So size and shape versus behavioural outcomes. Although we have the 2 different types of adaptations, why do they become adapted? What's the need for it? And the reason is that organisms need resources to survive, okay? So these resources can be food, water, light and minerals. Obviously animals needing food and water and some minerals, and plants mostly just needing light, minerals and water. Okay, so they don't eat anything, they use light as their kind of energy supply. And then population numbers can change, and this is because competition will change. So competition for resources will either increase or decrease, and that can affect the population. There are 2 different types. We're all about categorizing in science. So we've got intraspecific competition and we've got interspecific competition. So intraspecific means between members of the same species. So individuals in a species are competing for the same thing. So maybe there's a field of rabbits and there's only so much grass, and the rabbits have to compete with who's going to eat the grass for the day. So then we have interspecific competition, where members between different species compete for the same resources. So this is kind of similar to what I said at the beginning with the rainforest picture, where we had plants at the bottom and then plants at the top. They're competing for different kinds of resources. So the ferns might need to spread out a little bit more to catch the light, whereas the trees at the top may just trying to grow as fast as they can to reach the top where the most light is. That's a form of interspecific. Okay, so you need to know these 2 different terms. Inter usually means between people. When you go on to do job applications, you might see the word interpersonal skills, and it means between people skills. So basically talking, can you hold conversations with people? Whereas intra usually comes from the Latin of within the same, okay, intra. Okay, so it's not just competition that can change population numbers. So we also have predation, we have disease, and we have pollution. And these are kind of what I was going with these pictures. So for predation, obviously you've got animals eating other animals. Prey and predator, very common thing that we hear about. If there's more predators, because there's less competition for them, then that can affect the numbers of the prey, in this case the zebra here. We also have disease, so this is a picture demonstrating foot and mouth. So where I'm from in Somerset, this was huge, but back when I was growing up on farms, affected a lot of cows, pigs, sheep, all of the farm animals, and it destroyed a lot of communities because of this disease. Okay, so that can always happen. And then we've got pollution as well, and this is a bit of a dramatic picture here. It just kind of demonstrates how big of an impact humans have had on our local wildlife via pollution of the waters, via pollution of the lands, deforestation, all these kind of things. All of these ecology terms that we use also have effect on population numbers. Okay, and that's it for these two subtopics of this unit. Next time we'll be moving on to biodiversity, what it means and why it's important, and how we can conserve biodiversity in the world, different ways that we can do it.